every cheer's not alone. He knows the fight is all his own. He'll rise above, he won't back down. A lion spirit claim the crown. We fist up period on the night. To every stunning fight his might. The cloudy nights of voices now. The fights of God, he makes him proud.
You're watching Just Jeff.
Goddamn right.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for showing up. So, this is the G.I. Joe episode, but it's not the G.I. Joe episode that I think many are expecting. I'm not going to be talking about toys. I'm not going to be talking about the physical object of G.I. Joe. I'm going to be talking about the emotional and mental sides of it. And Dobby's going to bark in the background and ruin the speech. So whether it be a toy, whether it be the idea behind it, whether it be just the thing that exists, G.I. Joe has been there. The Verlander area. And it's touched all of our lives in different ways. I'm going to start with mine. Shitty things happen to me. I'm not going to get into it. If you want to find out about those shitty things, check us out with the Punk with Toys tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. Anyway, point being, Dobby's going to keep barking. Sorry. So, the point being is that G.I. Joe has been there for someone everywhere. For me, it started when I was 7, actually. I was always under the idea that G.I. Joe didn't happen for me until I was older, until I saw analog toys. And recently, my mom was going through the garage, and she found a box of G.I. Joe toys. Most of it is Star Brigade. One is the Hammer Hummer thing. Duke from 93, I think, with these in the tan and red. And she showed me the box. A lot of memories came pouring through, and like a lot of trauma that I had melted. Because I remembered playing in the backyard with those Joes. I remember playing in the backyard when Mark was dying in the front room. I remember playing with those Joes when I heard that Uncle Joe passed away. I remember those times, but I remember playing with those Joes. And it was the one thing that was with me that brought me comfort when I was that age. And I totally forgot about it because I put those things first above that. And that trauma melted because I was able to remember some good things. So without further ado, you didn't come here for me. Let me throw this in. It's Jeff from the past. So while I'm getting all these videos from people and everything else, I just want to say thank you very much for this. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with the toy thing anymore. I like this though. And so we're going to send you to Future Jeff once all this gets done. But I have some friends, not whatever, just friends, why you got into Joe and what's kept you there for the most part. So enjoy, watch, and let's hear from some of our friends, collectively mutual friends. And, yeah, and thanks again for everybody that sent in the video.
My love for properties is and always will be rooted in toys first. Whatever is comics, films after. I don't need to like that to like a specific line. And G.I. Joe was no different. The first time I saw the bridge layer at a friend's house, it was everything I loved about Kenner Star Wars, but now on a more realistic military setting. And I know G.I. Joe kind of got wacky, but I still loved it because I like science fiction. G.I. Joe, the comic, was just as good, but it was the toy line that won me over. And yes, this is a Super 7 figure. Please don't get mad at me. Yo, Joe.
Hey, I'm Kevin from Pegwarmers, and my buddy Jeff asked me to talk about how I got into G.I. Joe. And that's a really tough question because G.I. Joe has been almost omnipresent in my life. I was born in 1982, so He-Man and G.I. Joe came out that year. Their cartoons were on the air pretty much whenever I started watching cartoons in like preschool age. I remember getting G.I. Joe and He-Man toys for my 5th birthday. I had photos of my friends giving me G.I. Joe stuff for kindergarten, but I had stuff before that. And I had to have seen the cartoon because a boy that lived up the street from me gave me a bunch of G.I. Joes. He outgrew them, and his parents gave my parents this box of toys. My dad set them up on our sofa in the living room, and I got up one morning, and here was a bunch of G.I. Joes. And it was the Vamp and the Dragonfly, Grand Slam with the jump jetpack. Granted, things were missing some parts. I didn't have all of the drivers, but there was a mixed match of figures. I knew enough to know that, like, the generic green guys were called grunts. Turns out only one of the generic green guys' name is Grunt. I had a Short Fuse and a Hawk figure, and I thought they were both Duke for a while, because in the cartoon show, Duke is the main character, and you really don't see Short Fuse or Hawk much. But, as I watched the cartoon show more, I got to know more characters. I know I originally had a Spirit and a Mutt and Junkyard in that grouping of figures, and I love those guys because they came with pets. I thought that was super rad. And then by 1985, I definitely knew who a lot of the characters were, but didn't have a lot of the toys. My mom was kind of anti-military toys. She didn't really want me playing with toy weapons, but my dad's mom, my grandmother, gave me or mailed me some G.I. Joes for Christmas 1986. I got, that year, I don't know who gave me what, but I got Mainframe and Lifeline and Beachhead, and the obsession was real at that point. I started collecting things from the older waves at yard sales and stuff like that. Started collecting a lot of stuff from 86, 87, 88, 89. And eventually, I counted all my G.I. Joes as a kid at one point and realized I had 220 G.I. Joe figures with very few repeats. I had a couple of Vipers and a couple of Moto Vipers that I picked up at yard sales. But that at whatever point I counted them, I was like, I wonder how many there are and if I could get them all. And I kind of considered that moment when I became a collector. And it took me a long time. I'm still missing one. At one point in time, I thought I had the whole collection because the Goldhead Steel Brigade was considered a variant and not a individual release. So I thought I was done, and I rested on my laurels, and the cost of a Goldhead Steel Brigade skyrocketed. And to this day, it's the lone 3 3/4 inch release, official mainline figure that I don't have. I don't have every like Comic-Con exclusive or whatever, but or Joe Fest exclusive, but the original 1982 to 94 run, I've got them all but the Goldhead Steel Brigade, and I just can't really think of a time where I didn't know what G.I. Joe was or that I didn't play with it really. So I think because there was stuff from 84, 83 and 84 in the box stuff I got from the neighbor, I think I got that stuff sometime in 1985. Because like I said, I was aware of who the characters were based on the cartoon show at that point. G.I. Joe is an awesome brand. I love that it's still going in lots of different scales, lots of different forms. I've been collecting the new O-Ring stuff from Super 7. I collected a lot of the Super 7 Ultimate stuff. Obviously, I'm collecting a lot of the Hasbro classified stuff. But the O-Ring original 3 3/4 inch is my true love, as you can see by the wall of carded figures behind me. Thanks for hanging on the peg with me.
Howdy, kids. Maximilian Tucker from Insert Name here. So how did I get into G.I. Joe? That's a broad question, but I have a little bit of an unusual answer. And they're George Lucas and Kenner Toys. My mother and I were both huge Star Wars fans. Star Wars: A New Hope being the first movie I ever saw. So we were in from day one. And through all the movies, got almost every toy. And they were fantastic for the time. But I always found them lacking. The box art was always amazing. The movies were amazing. But I knew I was never going to get some of those action poses with 5 POA articulation. And that in itself also limited play sets and what you could do with figures in vehicles. And about the time of Return of the Jedi, 1983, you already had a lot of the 1982 and 1983 G.I. Joes hitting the Midwest area where I was growing up. And my father being a Vietnam vet and somebody who, had an antique collectors who had a number of the 12-inch scale Joes, I was familiar with what they were and, some of the story stuff. Doc Savage also being, real big, some of the stories that I read. So in a toy store one day, I bought Flash in 1982 straight arm. And the articulation, the accessories, the helmets came off. You had backpacks. You had laser rifles with hoses connected to them. Oh, it was fantastic, for that time period. And you could finally start to get some of the action poses that were promised on the box art. Now, mind you, I had no other exposure to G.I. Joe media, with the exception of a few commercials on TV, until issue 49 of Marvel Larry Hama's Real American Hero in 1986. And by then, Star Wars was pretty much done. And I was getting a Terrordrome for Christmas. So a toy vacuum, quality and articulation is really what started me with G.I. Joe. And Larry Hama kept me there. The cartoons weren't, I'd get home from school in time to see the last three minutes and the credits rolling. So I knew the end credits of G.I. Joe really well. But all that continues to this day. I still collect. I have a number of the antique 12-inch figures. And I've got a pretty much complete classified collection. So that, and Larry Hama still keeps me there today. And I've recently gotten into a little bit of the Energon universe, but that is kind of a, I try to keep it separate, peas and carrots. But anyway, that's how I got into G.I. Joe. And it's shortened version of a very long story. So with that being said, we now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
So a friend of mine asked me to kind of explain what G.I. Joe means to me. So it really hit me. I'm sitting in a Target parking lot at dusk trying to toy hunt, but I just wanted to get this down on wax before I lose it. G.I. Joe is... See, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this. This is why I've been struggling with this little video he's asked me to do, because G.I. Joe to me is kind of like a father figure, and I say that in the weirdest way, but also in the realest way, because here comes the waterworks, but I didn't have a father. I did, but he came around single-digit times in my life before he passed, and but G.I. Joe was there for me. That cartoon, the toys were there. You could watch the cartoon while playing with the toys. You learned lessons. At that, I was at the right age where I needed to kind of learn those lessons, and Ma wasn't there. She was out running the streets doing her thing. So the cartoon kind of guided me. G.I. Joe was always there, and that's why I support it. I'm a loyal person. I've always been loyal my whole life, regardless if it's to my wife, my children, whatever I choose to be loyal to, I'm a loyal dude. And G.I. Joe, I could say, kind of taught me that, because that was the first thing I've been loyal to my whole life. Before my wife, before my kids, I was loyal to G.I. Joe. They had the little cheesy lessons at the end, like don't touch hot stoves. I mean, that's obvious, but there was just little things about it, even the cartoon, the way they approached things and problem solved. I mean, yeah, it's not the best, but it teaches you to problem solve. That's what I got more from it. Not, I'm going to copy G.I. Joe and problem solve this problem with that way. It was more like it teaches you how to use your brain and expand your mind. And that's kind of what I got from it. And that's what I love about it. And I always will. You know, the sad part is to say I hope it never happens, but my family, all that stuff could go away. G.I. Joe will always be there as long as I'm willing to put the time into it. Everything else can go away in this world. IP properties can't really go away unless you stop looking at them. But hopefully this is what you were asking for, Jeff. I'm about to go in Target right now and see what they got. Yo, Joe, or something to that effect. Peace.
In the shadows where they ski, oh, cobras rising, plotting dreams. Watch out, G.I. Joe's on the scene. We won't back down, with courage we will fight and stand our ground. For freedom we unite, hear our battle cry. Together we are strong, never asking why.
So that was the thing that I asked everybody to do. And it was eye-opening to a lot of you, and it was a lot of good things. I just want to say this, and then I'll be done. I'm not going to plug anything. Just the world we live in right now is very scary sometimes. But I've always believed that people that need to be where they need to be are where they need to be in order for the right decisions to happen. That's what G.I. Joe means to me. Fight against tyranny, evil, all that. It gives me hope. And that's something we don't have much of these days. Treat your friend like your brother. Tell someone you appreciate them. And trans rights are human rights.
When Chaparito steps into the ring, his heart is racing, feels a sting. With every cheer he's not alone, he knows the fight is all his own. He'll rise above, he won't back down. A lion spirit claim the crown. Fist up period on the night, through every stony fight. His might, the cloudy nights, the voices now, he fights the glory, makes him proud.
You're watching Just Jeff.
Goddamn right.